Are we live? Yes, we are live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the strawberryloli channel. We are here to talk about the new movie about ducks. Yes, you heard that right. It's an animated film about a family of ducks that decide to migrate to a tropical location. So you already know right off the bat that this is not one of those serious live streams. Maxine is so annoyed at the sound of my voice because I haven't been live streaming a lot lately. Before we get into the movie, Migration, that's what we're going to be reviewing today. And you guys know, of course, I have a proper merch haul for you, okay? I don't want to hear it. Out of anyone, I am more surprised than anyone that I ended up with 7,000 yen. Yes, pretty much 7,000 yen worth of duck merchandise. I know I say this every time. Like, I never intend to go into watching a movie. I never intend to buy the merch going into it, but then I always end up buying the merch. And it's ironic because the movies that I write off immediately, the ones that I'm very, very flippant about in the beginning, they tend to be the ones that I spend the most on somehow. But I'm a very happy camper, okay? I'm not disappointed at all, just surprised because it's a duck movie. But once we get into the movie, you're gonna see why. Oh my god, Maxine. I almost felt like hesitant to do a review on this movie for fear that children would seek out and find my channel. Not that there's anything like super inappropriate or anything on my channel, but it's definitely not geared towards kids. But then I was thinking like children, more often than not, they would just be on YouTube or on the internet to watch the movie itself, right? I don't really hear of 5-year-olds seeking out movie reviews necessarily. So yeah, I mean, so far all of the migration reviews that I've seen on YouTube are geared towards adults. It's by adults for adults, right? We're talking about critiqueable aspects of the film, which is not the lens that a child looks through for movie viewing anyway. But yeah, so just before we get started, I know I don't have any eye makeup on. My eyes are going through it with the current allergy season. My entire face really, like my nose, my throat, but my eyes in particular, you can't really see. It doesn't look that bad through the screen, but you see how it's literally flaking? Like my eyelids have been flaking for the past month. I'm not even joking. My left eye is faring a little better than the right, but the right one is just been it's a little bit better now actually because it's just like the dead skin flaking off, so I'm hoping it's the last stages. But before that it was like red for weeks on end, and the problem was that I kept having to put on, like, I tried to take as many breaks with my eye makeup as possible just so that this whole situation could clear up. Every time that it started to heal up a little bit, I found myself having to put on a full face of makeup again, whether it be for going on a date or, some other type of event. Like, I would have to put on makeup until this week. Since last Friday, I haven't worn a stitch of makeup near the eye area at least because I decided that it's really just enough. I don't know. At this point, I'm afraid that it might not even fully heal because it was like very, very rough also along my lash line. Although I can feel that the softness of the skin is finally coming back. So hopefully, we'll just ride it out. Surprisingly, when you do everything else, when you do your foundation, your blush, lips, it kind of looks okay. You still can manage to look put together. Obviously, I would like to at least put on some mascara to emphasize the eye area because it just looks like sleepy right now. But hey, what can you do? Migration, though, as you saw in the thumbnail, I won this from one of the UFO catchers near the theaters. It's inside the theater, the Toho Cinemas Shinjuku Theater. That's the one with the big Godzilla behind it. It's the landmark that everyone goes to when they visit Tokyo. So that's the one I went to watch Migration because that was the only theater within my near vicinity that was playing it in the original English with Japanese subtitles. I feel like there's something in front of the camera. No? Like, what is that? My local theater only had it dubbed over in Japanese. I'm not a fan of dub in any language, like not because it's Japanese, but I just prefer to watch things in the original language and then English subtitles if I need them. But anyway, I had to go to the Godzilla one, which had a UFO catcher with these little plushies. And I got this one on the third try. Okay. I really wish, okay, I tried to film it, but then, my nerves got the better of me. I wasn't able to film myself actually catching the plush with the claw because I feel like if I had filmed it the whole way through, then it would have tripped me up and I would not have been able to win this on the third try. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, this one is, I believe this is Dax, the little boy duck. How do I get rid of this? Okay. Sorry, I'm still learning how to use StreamYard, which, by the way, I'm fully aware that this review does not really warrant StreamYard software, but I thought it was funny just because, the logo for StreamYard is a duck after all. And what are the chances? So it's a family of mallard ducks, right? Mallard ducks have this pattern, this coloring with the green and the brown. These are the males though. The females don't have this coloring. But so it's a family of ducks that decides to try their hand at migration even though they have stayed in the same pond for their entire lives because the dad, whose name is Mac. The dad is very, very risk adverse. And also, you can sympathize with him as just a caring, loving father who doesn't want his children to be put in harm's way. So he naturally feels that the best way to prevent any sort of possible dangerous scenarios is to just keep his family in that pond where everything is safe. They know what to expect, there's no danger, and his solution is just to live there now and forever until the end of time. The problem is the mother duck, whose name is Pam, and the two kids, Dax and Gwen, they have a bit of wanderlust in them, right? Like they're all itching to go on some sort of adventure. They've never left their little pond. So when this group of like exotic looking ducks, I don't know, I'm sure it's an actual duck species, but I've actually never seen them before. But it's like an exotic duck species that migrates every year. So they do a pit stop into the mallard duck family's pond. I'm giving you guys a spoiler warning, but I'm saying that there's not really that much of a spoiler. There's not that much of like a big reveal in this movie, so much as it is a sequence of adventures or misadventures, if you will, that this duck family finds themselves embroiled in until along the way they learn the value of family and sticking together and believing in each other, forgiving each other as well for certain oversights. But then at the end, it's like wrapped up in this nice, warm, family friendly message. So there will be spoilers in the sense that, yes, I'm going to go through like some of the scenarios that these ducks find themselves in, but I don't think it would spoil the movie. One of the many things that I was impressed with about this movie is that it managed to keep the adults entertained as much as the children. Like, it is a family-friendly film. Of course, there's nothing inappropriate in it, but at the same time, there's things that, like, every single time the ducks get themselves out of one tight situation and find themselves hurled into the other. It's very much a out of the frying pan and into the fire type of comedy. This happens over and over again to the family until the resolution in the end, when they finally reach their destination. Not only have they overcome all of these obstacles behind them, now they're ready to like move forward as a family unit with the knowledge that they gained from these mishaps that they've been on, right? So now moving forward, they're not going to make the same mistakes, or who knows, they might still. It was hinting at the end of the movie that there was going to be a sequel, so this could be good potential for actually an ongoing kind of storyline or theme with the family, that they continuously decide to migrate to different parts of the world, and each time they find themselves in very tight near-death situations where they have to use their teamwork and just overall wit and intellect to get themselves out of it. But yeah, so okay, let me just go through the mallard duck family. So they're like lifing along in their little pond in New England, USA, when one day this group of exotic ducks from somewhere take a pit stop in their pond. So they're taking a rest basically from their migration to their final destination, which would be Jamaica. When every member of the mallard duck family, except for the dad. Mac hears about this. They're like super excited and intrigued. And then so Dax and one of the girl ducks, whose name is Kim. I love how I think all the ducks in this movie are named one syllable names. It's very much giving like quack, quack. Like every single name sounds like you could quack it out in one syllable. So the dad's name is Mac. He's married to Pam. Their kids are Dax and Gwen. They have an uncle Dan. And then even the duck from the other flock, the other species, kind of Dax's love interest, her name is Kim. So I thought that was like very clever and cute. So yeah, the exotic ducks ask the mallards if they want to come along with them on their yearly migration to Jamaica. Mom duck, Pam, is like, oh my God, that sounds so exciting. But then the dad duck is like, oh, no, we're busy this year. Remember, he's making all of these excuses as to why they cannot go. After the exotic ducks leave, the mom duck kind of gets very exasperated with him. And she's like, you never want to do anything adventurous. Like, you never think outside the box, that type of thing. And then he's like, well, what kind of father would I be if I put my kids in harm's way, though? Like, I'm just trying to keep our family safe. But then, not Gwen, Pam, his wife, her point of view is that, yeah, I mean, that's fine and all. Of course, safety is a priority, but it's also equally as important to let your kids see the world, like see other cultures, experience other parts of the world so that their worldview is not so sheltered. And then, so basically, like, Mac has a come to Jesus moment that night, and he decides, you know what, I'm going to do it. I'm going to get over this fear that I have, push myself out of my comfort zone, and give my family what they want. I'm going to take them on this adventure slash vacation slash migration. And I just thought it was so funny because it totally mirrors the real life scenarios of so many couples that I know. Pretty much every single woman that I've met before, not every single one, but like so many real life couples. If you are a woman and you are in a relationship with a man, or you know a woman in a relationship with a man, chances are you've heard the complaint that the woman is the one that wants to travel. She's the one that wants to go out there, get out there and seek new experiences, while the man is the one that likes to just stay home, or even not necessarily home, but the man likes to stay put. The man is not adventurous. I've seen this with my own parents, right? When, back when I was a kid, my mom would always want to go on vacations. She would look at other families that took like yearly vacations, guaranteed that they would go to a different country every year. And then she would complain that, my dad doesn't want to put in the effort to plan any family vacations. If she pushed for it, then yeah, like we would go once in a while. But my dad was only going to please her and to please us, right? Like, if we were not interested in traveling to other places, then he would have been just as happy. He would have been totally fine staying home. And I've had so many friends complain to me the same thing about their husbands, their boyfriends, that they want to go travel. They want to do this activity and that activity. And the guy just wants to stay home and watch TV, or the guy wants to stay inside the country, right? Like, okay, he's open to travel, but only within Japan if they live in Japan, or like only within the States if they live in the States. And I've seen this with my aunt and uncle. So my younger aunt, my uncle, who is the younger brother of my dad and his wife, he also doesn't want to travel, right? Like, he's not the type of person that really likes to put himself out there. He doesn't really want to have to navigate or get up to speed to a new environment. His wife, on the other hand, she really wants to travel, right? Like, she has a group of girlfriends that she travels with and does activities with sometimes. So that's good. Like, that's usually kind of the compromise that I've seen a lot of couples with this dynamic have. Like, the wife will just find a group of girlfriends to travel or do her fun things with, and then the guy just can stay at home and be boring if he wants to. But it's just so funny, like, the majority of my couples, they embody this exact dynamic that this duck couple in the movie is portrayed as having. And I just think it's funny. They definitely took that from reality, or maybe even some personal experience that the screenwriter had. So that was funny. The only couple that I know where the guy is somewhat willing to travel along with the woman, and not in a way that she's kind of dragging him by his feet, but in a way where the man is actually willing to go along. The only couple that I've seen is my second aunt and uncle. They are the ones that I told you about in a previous story time, where my aunt basically, it's going to sound weird, but you have to watch the story time in order to understand the context. So I'll link that here if you want to go watch that story time. But my second aunt and uncle, my aunt kind of, long story short, she gave up wearing nail polish, or in particular red nail polish, to appease my uncle, because he has kind of a thing, like it's an actual fear. So this is not a controlling toxic masculine type of thing, but he kind of just has trauma associated with like red or blood color near his food. So anyway, long story short, my aunt doesn't get her nails done because of this. But interestingly enough, right, that's the only couple that I see. And they're like old, okay? I mean, they're 70 years young, but they're not like a young couple in their 30s and 40s still in the prime of their life, right? Like this is their retirement years, but they travel a decent amount together. Like I can see in the vacation pictures that my aunt showed me, this is the second aunt, I can see that my uncle is at least somewhat happy to be there. Okay. So yeah, this is the family, right? We have from left to right, Uncle Dan, and then Gwen is the little chick right there. She's so cute. Dax, which I think is my little plush toy, Mac, second to right, and finally Pam, the mom duck. Oh yeah, and I don't did I show you guys the claw machine that I won my Dax duck from? 300 yen, you guys, 3 coins. That's what it took me to win. I wasn't sure, because if you look at the machine, the pile of ducks is actually not that high. So there's a bunch of tricks, right, that you need to use in order to actually win something from these UFO crane machine games. You can see in the background, like there's actually not that many plushes piled up on top of the platform. So that alone makes it kind of hard, or kind of iffy. It was hard for me to gauge whether or not there would be a guaranteed win for me, because usually if it's piled up a lot, if there's like lots of layers of plush toys on top of each other, then usually that makes it easier for you to win, because the claw itself, it's not strong enough to actually like grab onto the toy and lift it all the way to the drop hole place, because the claw, it's not designed to support the entire weight of the toy. So the strategy that you have to employ, your best bet is to like knock a well-positioned toy off of some sort of pile, or at least if you have a multi-try strategy in place, which is what I had. I was aiming to get this in 3 tries. Like I was thinking that, okay, if I'm ambitious, I can get this in 3 tries. If not, like my max amount of tries, I would have tried up to maybe 7 times. Yeah, 7 or 8 times, because that would be 800 yen, right? If I tried 8 times. And so I would consider this to be worth 800 yen. But I wasn't sure about this one, because it's like not a huge pile of toys. It's just that one single layer. So I had to basically like drag this one toy closer and closer each time. It's not going to let you just grab it and then drop it in the hole all in one go, because the claw is not designed to support the weight of the plush. So what you have to do is like you do it the first time and then you think that it's going to work, but then it always shakes at some point in the middle of its journey, which usually causes the toy to drop. But the thing is, when it drops closer to the hole than it was originally when you first pick the toy up, right? So that's what you're banking on. Every time that you put in a new coin to try again, you're banking on getting this closer and closer to the hole until eventually the distance is so short that the claw is able to sustain the weight of the toy for that small amount of time, or it's so close that even if the claw drops the toy midway, it will still, like the momentum will catapult the toy over into the exit, if that makes sense. I just gave you a masterclass on Japanese UFO catcher games, crane games right there. Okay, you're welcome. Oh, this scene was really funny. So this was the first misadventure that they get themselves into when they first set out. They get started on their migration and then they notice that they're going in the opposite direction that a lot of other flocks of birds are going in. So they're kind of starting to think, or they're starting to wonder, is something wrong? Do we have the wrong direction? and then they get stranded in a rainstorm, right? So they're like trying to take cover for shelter under this, not a cave, but like there's like a bunch of rocks, and then the family is kind of just huddled into a hole to shield themselves from the rain. So then while they're there, a heron, right? You guys know what a heron is. It's like one of those long-legged birds whose name is Erin. She finds them. She's an elderly heron named Erin, and she finds them in the rainstorm. And it is the creepiest scene ever. I mean, obviously, it's still kid appropriate, but I was genuinely like on the edge of my seat during this scene because it was so tense. So I thought that that was really well done. Overall, I really thought that everything, all the animation and the, not just the animation, but the direction in this film was well done. It took us through so many different movie genres almost. Like the scene with the herons was, so this heron named Erin, she kind of lures them into her house where she lives with her old decrepit husband who's like half dead. I forget the name of her husband, but she's like, oh, maybe we'll call him Earl. I feel like it was Earl. She's like, my husband used to bring in the prey. Herons are predator birds, right? So they eat ducks and smaller birds for food. So the duck family, the mallards, are like terrified, but they can't really say no, because if they say no, then they're afraid that Erin is gonna kill them on the spot. So they just play along and like go into her house for the night. Plus, they don't really have any other option because it's like pouring rain outside. But yeah, that scene was really funny. And then she tells them to sleep in this pan right here. Oh my god, it was like hilarious. But if I was a kid, I would be terrified because I'm a scaredy cat. Okay, this is why I cannot watch any actual horror. I can watch YouTube true crime. That's about it. But yeah, it's funny because eventually I think that she was planning on eating them all along, especially the two baby ducks, Dax and his sister Gwen. But then basically what happens is that a pufferfish comes up out of the water, and then she gets distracted by the pufferfish because that's a bigger and juicier meal than the ducks would have been. So they end up cooking the pufferfish instead. And she actually does keep true to her word of sheltering the mallard family for the night. Like they just end the night by, getting as much sleep as they can in that situation, and then they leave in the morning. But it's a brilliantly executed film. It's so funny. So we get a little bit of horror, and then after that they end up in New York City, which is their first time seeing a city, right? So when they get closer and closer, they realize that there's all these obstacles in the city. Like they have to dodge all of this construction equipment and the skyscrapers. They run into a gang of pigeons, which is led by this pigeon named Chump, I believe. Yeah, Chump, who is voiced by Aquafina, who at this point I kind of feel bad for because I feel like, okay, number one, why did these movie studios keep casting Aquafina as the voice actor for all these new movies when every single person that I see, movie reviewer that I've seen, or anyone that has voiced their opinion on these movies, none of them are a fan of Aquafina's voice acting. So the only other one I can think of right now is she was Scuttle, right? The pelican or the seagull. I think it was a seagull in the Little Mermaid live action. So everyone hated her in that role. And I believe she was another animated character as well. I don't remember. And then now here she is again. They put her as the boss of the pigeon gang. Which, to be fair, in this movie, if you didn't tell me that was Aquafina, I probably would not have noticed because she didn't do anything particularly annoying in this role. Like the character itself was really funny and endearing. It's kind of like a tough guy. Because in the beginning, the pigeons are not happy about the ducks infringing on their territory. Basically, Uncle Dan is trying to eat a Subway sandwich that he found, and then Mac calls the pigeons a really derogatory name. So then the pigeons get really upset. But then afterwards, they kind of clear up their misunderstanding and they become friends. The character itself was really funny, right? It's kind of like this gang leader stereotype, but it's funny because it's in the body of this pigeon. But yeah, I just feel kind of bad for Aquafina at this point because nobody likes her voice acting, and yet she keeps getting cast in these roles. So I guess at the end of the day, she has the last laugh because she's the one laughing all the way to the bank. But anyway, they're asking the pigeon, do you know how to get to Jamaica. That's where we're trying to go. And then he's like, or no, she's like, oh, do you mean Jamaica Queens or the other Jamaica? And they're like, no, the actual Jamaica. And then she leads them to this parrot that is being held captive in a cage by this evil chef. So the villain, the overarching villain in this story is this human chef who this is okay, and this is what's going to set my review apart from all the other reviews that you've seen of migration on the net. I always have the most unique take out here on the YouTube movie review streets, okay, if I do say so myself. So this is the chef, right? He's the bad guy of the story because he kidnapped the parrot Delroy. When the Mallard family tells the pigeon that they've lost their way and they're trying to get to Jamaica, the pigeon is like, "Oh, I know exactly the guy who will know the directions, who can give you directions there. Let me hook you up." And so the pigeon brings them to the chef's house where Delroy, the parrot, it's a red parrot. I don't know what the species is. Like the parrot used to live in Jamaica. That is his homeland. And the parrot is voiced by Keegan Michael Key, the comedian. So that was funny as well. The casting for this movie was perfect. Even Aquafina. I mean, I feel like Aquafina's character, it was really interchangeable. It didn't have to be her. It could have been any other voice actor. Like there are plenty of voice actors out there who could have done that job just as good or maybe even better than her. But since she's a trending name nowadays, I'm also not going to be upset or mad at a fellow Asian woman getting her bag. So as long as she's getting paid, I guess I'm happy for her. But yeah, so they bring the family to the chef's place. And then it becomes a larger mission of like, not only are they trying to get to Jamaica, but they're also planning on how they can help Delroy escape his cage, right? Because he's been captured by the chef and forced to be a house pet for all of these years. So this is the evil chef. I don't know if he has a name. I feel like none of the humans, I mean, the humans are not significant because the movie is about the ducks and the animals, like the birds. So yeah, the humans I don't think any of them even say a single word. But yeah, the moment that I saw this chef, do you guys want to know the first person that popped into my mind that I felt like, okay, no way that they modeled the bad guy after this particular person, but also I just cannot think of anyone else who would have possibly been the inspiration. So this is also how you can tell that I'm an OG YouTuber. The chef reminds me of Mystery. Do you guys know Mystery? Yeah, it's as cringe as he looks in this picture. He was the original red pill guy, we could say, on YouTube. He started the whole pickup artist movement. It was literally called PUA, which then evolved into like the entire, I guess you could say, manosphere, like the red pill ideology, the the incels and the black pill. It all started with this guy who went by the moniker of Mystery. He was the original one who taught men that had no game on the internet how to pick up women. And they called their society, their secret society, the pickup artist community, PUAs. My mind immediately went to this Mystery when I saw the evil chef in the migration movie. Is it not the spitting image? I'm so sorry, but I'm not. Like, you cannot tell me. Even the earrings, look, they both have huge cringe earrings and the goatee. You cannot tell me that this is not a direct modeling of this character on the original infamous pickup artist of YouTube. But okay, let's move to the next slide because I don't want to look at that person anymore. And this is the Heron, Aaron, right? Yeah, that's all I have. What else? And then they go to they managed to free Delroy after a near brush with death in the kitchen of the chef, the evil chef, right? Hell's Kitchen. And then they managed to get the key from the chef in order to unlock Delroy's cage. And then once Delroy is free, he brings the family into the right direction to Jamaica. He's also going to go back to see his family for the first time in many, many years. But then they get sidetracked by this so they find these doors in the middle of the wood, and then it leads underground into this oasis paradise place with a bunch of white birds. I don't know if it's geese or like very white fluffy birds. Geese. They're doing yoga or something. And then the leader is giving cult leader vibes. So the whole situation was giving cult, right? Like like Heaven's Gate, that type of vibes, which again, I thought it was genius because as an adult, you recognize immediately what's going on here. Within the first second of that scene being presented to me, I thought, oh, this is a cult of white fluffy birds. But as a kid, you may or may not feel something is off, but you may not necessarily know the concept of a cult. I mean, unless you're growing up in a cult, I guess. But then I feel like if you were growing up in a cult, they wouldn't let you watch secular movies. I don't know. Has anyone out there experienced growing up in a cult, by the way? Like, feel free to leave your experience in the comments below. But yeah, so they run into this cult of like hippy dippy white fluffy birds. And then it turns out, surprise, surprise, of course, yeah, there's like an amusement park, there's water slides, like the humans there provide all of these amazing services to make these birds' lives heaven on earth. But then, of course, it's revealed at the end that the humans are just fattening up the birds in order to sell them off to the evil chef. I guess it's kind of the same idea as, you know, how with Wagyu beef, they treat the cows, or yeah, they treat the cow. Is it cows that beef comes from? It's a cow, right? They treat the cows really well, like they massage them in order to get that marble texture in the Wagyu beef. So I feel like they were trying to represent the same thing here, where they treated the birds really well, like they would massage them and allow them to eat the only the best feed, play in the pool, play in the water slides all day, only to be ultimately slaughtered for a gourmet meal, right? Or sold off to the evil chef so that he can slaughter them for his restaurant. I guess that's the climax of the film, when the evil chef, so they initially managed to, all of the white birds are brainwashed to the point where they think that the black truck that the chef pulls up in, the humans and the bird leader are telling them that, oh, this is a new adventure, like this is a new fun thing that you guys get to experience. So they're all blindly filing into this black truck. But then the Mallard family, they sense right away that something is wrong, and they also recognize the evil chef from their close conflict with him earlier in his house when they were freeing Delroy. So they managed to de-brainwash the white birds and convince them to run for their lives out of the truck at the last second. And then so by this point, all of them are on the run, right? The white bird cult colony, the mallards, Delroy. I don't know if the pigeon is still with them. Maybe the pigeon is not there. But yeah, so they all are on the run for the better part of a day, and then they have to eventually stop for some rest, right? So they stop. They're still in New York City, or in some sort of city by this point, and they need to basically just stop on the roof of some hotel or restaurant to rest for the night, where the evil chef, who is in a helicopter, I can't believe I'm doing this video. He's in a helicopter by this point, okay? He's shining the spotlight on all these different areas in the city to try to locate these birds. And he eventually locates them, drops a net out of the sky from his helicopter to capture the birds before they can even, like, before they even know what's happening. And then so this is the part that really tugged at my heartstrings. I shed a tear during this movie, okay? Let that sink in for a while. I actually shed a tear or two during this movie, and I will go on record saying that Migration is better than Argylle and Madam Web combined. That's a pretty alarming reality that we have to face here. I watched Argylle and Madam Web with the same guy, like on two separate dates, and I was kind of joking with him afterwards. I was teasing him that, hey, how come every movie that I watch with you, not only is it the worst movie I've ever seen, but it tops the last movie that we saw in terms of how awful it is. So the first movie that we watched was Argylle, right? And I walked out of the movie theater thinking, wow, that was so bad that it was actually hilarious because of how bad it was. So we had a good time. I could not stop laughing. But then Madam Web was even worse. So we watched Madam Web subsequently after Argylle the next week. And I did not know that it was possible to just, like, I'm scared, honestly, at the depths that we have sunk to in terms of how bad a movie can possibly be. Madam Web is hands down the worst movie I've ever seen in my life. Like, certainly in the theaters. So yeah, I was telling this guy that, I don't know what to think, that each movie that we watch with each other is the worst movie I've ever seen in my life. This one I went by myself, the migration movie. So the one that I watched by myself, it turned out to be a banger. It's actually really underrated. I feel like they were saying that this is Illumination's lowest grossing film, which makes me really sad because I think it's actually a really great storyline. It's really, really well executed. I like how much detail they put into crafting the scenes from the perspective of the ducks, you know? So, like, for example, when they're flying into New York City, of course, we get the bird's eye view because the idea is that we're looking down on the city at first from their vantage point, which is up in the sky. They're flying in a V formation, doing their migration thing. But then as they approach the city closer and closer, it starts to become this really chaotic, like death trap almost, right? Because they have to swerve and turn at the last second to avoid concrete walls and construction equipment and stuff. So you see that from the perspective of if you were inside the brain of a bird, if you were looking out through the eyes of a bird. And then also, like, when they're on the floor, you can see, you know, the birds are really, really short, right? So things look extra huge and extra menacing. So I thought that that part was executed really well. I can't speak to the actual quality of like the special effects or animation. I mean, I'm sure it's not top notch in the industry, but it was good enough for me to not notice how anything was off or how bad things were, if that makes sense. Like, it was good enough so that I didn't pay attention to is the FXing, and I was able to just focus on the story. So I would consider that a win. It was also just really heartwarming. So yeah, like I was saying, we left off with the scene where the evil chef guy manages to find the birds as they're resting, and he drops that huge net to catch all of them, except he doesn't catch the two child ducks. That scene was heart-wrenching because the parents are like, no, 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 kids, go save yourselves. Don't come near this net, right? You guys are free. You guys are safe. So you just stay there. Don't worry about us. And then, like, when they're in captivity, the evil chef guy, he keeps the two ducks, Pam and Mac, together in a separate cage from the other fluffy white birds because he knows that those are the troublemakers, right? They are the ones who actually took his key and freed his parrot. And so he keeps them in a separate cage next to his feet as he's driving the helicopter so that even if they try to escape, he'll be able to see it immediately and stop them. The heart to heart that they have inside the cage, it made me shed a tear as well. Like, oh my God, this duck story bringing out more emotion than Argyle and Madam Web combined. I'm telling you. Pam is like really, really upset, right? Because she's just been separated from her kids. So Pam is like, you know, I never should have pushed you to take our family on this migration because you were right all along. We should have stayed in the pond. We should have just stayed there where it was safe. And it was stupid of me to want a big adventure when we were already safe. And I should have just been grateful for what I had. That's what she was saying. But then Mac is like, no, what are you talking about? Like, you're the one that opened my eyes to this whole new world. You're the one that pushed me to go past my comfort zone. And now I've discovered that I can be brave. Like, I can do all of these things. I can be a leader because of you. And it was just so heartwarming. And so they're both having this moment. I like how they exemplified truly empowering, truly healthy family dynamics in this movie. Because, like, not once, I mean, you know, they had the little, like, humorous moments or snarky comments that one family member would make to the other from time to time, but it was all very balanced. And at the end of the day, you could tell that it was rooted in a very healthy family dynamic. I really liked that because I feel like in a world where so many movies these days, the plot lines or like the characters and the relationships are twisted to fit some sort of political agenda. Either it's man bashing or woman bashing, or it's trying to make men look stupid while women look like the most capable ones in any scenario. I didn't feel any of that in this movie, which is a good thing. I mean, you would hope that kids' movies are as free as possible from political agenda, but I didn't feel any of that. I felt like they truly represented what a healthy, mutually supportive married couple should be, right? And even maybe this is also a play on the idea that ducks mate for life. I looked this up afterwards, and apparently it is not true, but I feel like maybe it's one of those Mandela effect things. I feel like I definitely learned at some point when I was younger that ducks mate for life, or a certain species of duck mates for life. Apparently it's not true. Apparently they only mate for any given season and they can change partners. But anyway, we'll just say for the sake of this movie that ducks mate for life. So they kind of threw in a joke about that too. Like at one point, Pam is talking about, well, I'm his life partner, or I've chosen to spend my life with him, something like that. That was funny. But yeah, like I like how she was, even though Pam was frustrated with his initial unwillingness to move past his comfort zone and to put aside his own selfish needs and wants for staying in one place in service of his family's desires to go on a big adventure and vacation. She never overly nagged him or emasculated him. I know this sounds so weird, like talking about an anthropomorphic duck family, but we're looking at it through the lens of adults here, right? I thought it was just very, very refreshing to see an actually healthy, mutually supportive marriage dynamic being portrayed on screen in this animated kids movie. Like both of them admit their own faults and both of them give each other credit where it's due, which is what anyone could hope for from a healthy marriage, right? And then the same thing with the kids as well. It's like an older brother, younger sister dynamic. So there's a little bit of teasing that goes on there, but it never veers into the bullying territory. It never crosses any sort of line. And at the end of the day, you can see there are so many scenes where they make it a point to demonstrate that Dax is very protective over his younger sister. And it's just so cute. Like it pulls at the heartstrings, okay? Even when Dax loses his wings because the evil chef guy steps on them, so he's not able to fly for the second half of the movie, but then he figures something out, right? Like I won't get into too much more detail because it's been an hour now and I need to still get to the merch. But yeah, like it showed him being very protective over his little sister Gwen. I mean, maybe I'm biased here because I'm an only child, but whenever people have asked me whether or not I wished that I could have had a sibling, I always say that if I could choose a sibling, it would be an older brother, right? And so that's exactly the dynamic that I would imagine or that I would hope for if I had an older brother, like someone to protect me, tease me, of course, in the way that brothers are almost obligated to do. But when push comes to shove, when it really matters, I would want that protective older brother energy around me. And yeah, I just thought it was so precious that they were able to demonstrate that through these ducks. I think I analyzed all I could analyze out of this movie about a family of ducks. So now we can get into the merch. It was one of those situations where I just slipped and ended up with 7,000 yen worth of duck merchandise in my hand. Actually, no, that's a lie. Because the Godzilla cinema that I went to, the one where I got the UFO duck toy from, they didn't have any migration merch left. So I went out of my way to go to Walt 9, which is my favorite theater. But remember, I couldn't go to that theater because they were not playing the English version of the film. It's in generally the same area. They're both in Shinjuku. So of course, after I'm done at the Godzilla cinema, I walk over to Walt 9 to check their merch stand, which is infinitely better than the Godzilla theater stand. That's one of the reasons why I favor Walt 9, but also because it's kind of out of the way, because the Godzilla one can tend to get very crowded and hectic, but the Walt 9 one is a little more tucked away. It's a little more hidden. Not as many people know about it, but it also has the best merch, okay, honey? So get ready. We have a ball pen. Oh, I need to remove this. Okay. Oh my goodness. So we have the ball pen. And then there's Gwen, the little baby duck. This movie is called Fly in Japanese, by the way. They translate it to Fly because I guess migration is a little bit too complicated. Up close and personal. There's the pen. It has kind of like a bumper sticker design with a feather and Gwen. Is this a real feather? It feels like a real feather. So now I have two pens. I have the Spider Gwen and Gwen from Migration. Oh my god, two Gwens. I have two Gwen pens. Spider Gwen and Gwen the Duck from Migration. Talk about a coincidence. Yeah, let me see. Does this even work? Okay, it works. It's not the best, but we're not buying it for the ink. At first, the only thing that I was planning to get was this notebook, Spread Your Wings. I like that message. I really do. You guys know I'm not crazy about the graph paper layout, but This one is light enough to which I can ignore it pretty well. So I can use this. You guys know I like my notebooks. I'm always on the prowl for a new manifestation notebook. So originally I was only going to pick this up, but then that quickly changed after I looked at some of the other available merch. The sheer amount of merchandise that they had available for this duck movie, I'm like simultaneously impressed and perplexed. Like the fact that there is even this much demand for migration merch. But then joke's on me at the end of the day, I guess, because I bought it. I got all of these like keychains. So this one has all of the ducks, Mac and Pam and Dax, Gwen, Uncle Dan, who is voiced by Danny DeVito, by the way. Yeah, and I think this is Mac as well. So it's an acrylic keychain. And then we have another acrylic keychain, which looks like a photo card. So this is Gwen, Dax, and I think on the back, it's a different design. Oh, I see, I see. So it's like a photo frame and then there's two scenes. So there's this lake scene, lake mountain scene, and then there's also a city scene. If you flipped it around, I'm not going to do it now, but yeah, you could have it frame the city as well. That is really cute. I don't know what I'm going to use this for, but for now, we shall just put it aside. And then I got this sticker, Adventure Together. Indeed. Uncle Dan. I liked every time they said Uncle Dan, because you know they have Japanese subtitles here. So every time they said Uncle Dan, it would say Dan Oji-san in the subtitles. I don't know why. I just thought that was so funny. What else did I get? Oh, yeah. A two-way pouch bag. I mean, a duck movie, you guys. This merch has no business being this classy for a movie about a family of ducks. So it looks like that when you open it up, and there's this embroidery here. Look at how classy. It says find a bigger pond. Embroidery, okay? If you looked at this from afar, you would not even be able to tell that it's from a kids movie. This is why going to the movies in Japan is literally, I have accepted that every time I go out to watch a movie in Japan, I am very likely to spend up to 10,000 yen. Like that's just what my set point has to be from now on. For every time I go to the cinema, every time I go to the movie, just be prepared to be out 10,000 yen by the end of the night. That's how I cope with this, because if I don't, then it's just too much of a shock that I'm in for after I'm done perusing the merch stand. Perusing. Ah! I was this close to spilling my caramel macchiato. Why do I feel like I'm always constantly using my scissors and yet they were always lost? Well, I have an X-Acto knife, so we'll make do with this one. Wait a minute, hold on. This is 1,500 yen? I thought this was 1,900 yen. 1,500 doesn't sound so bad, but I could have sworn that I paid 1,900. Let me check my receipt. The lady at the cash register was not impressed with me, by the way. Like, she was so over, well, her job that day, which you can't blame her for. I would not want to be making minimum wage at a movie merch stand either, but she was not impressed with me when I walked up to her with my 7,000 yen worth of migration merchandise. I have my receipt. Oh, it was 1,500 yen. That's a nice surprise. I thought this was 1,900 yen. Because they usually price the bags and the classier looking items, like the more functional ones that adults would actually want, they usually make those a little bit more expensive. But I gotta say, I feel like 1,500 is reasonable. And voila. Ooh, I quite like this. I like the simplicity. Doesn't smell weird either. It's just canvas material. And the inside, oh my god, wait. It's like silky material. And again, it has that travel bumper sticker design. Can you see? It says migration. Are we there yet? Looks like a passport full of stamps. This description says that it's a two-way bag. Oh, okay. So it's saying the two-way part is referring to the fact that you can wear it over your shoulder, or you could just, put away the strap and use it as a regular pouch. It's not referring to the fact that you can flip it open and use it this way, because you actually can't if you think about the fact that the zipper would be upside down. So yeah, that makes sense. I wouldn't wear it this way anyway. I think putting the busy design on the inside was a perfect touch while you have the plain canvas exterior. But yeah, you can literally wear it as a shoulder bag. Hold on, let me get up. Wear it like that. Or you can just remove it. Remove the strap and then put it away. I'm not going to remove it though. I'm just going to keep it like this. Ah! Yo, this duck merch is slapping, okay? Way more than it has any right to. Last but not least, I got this handkerchief. I was on the fence about this one because, okay, so they always do these like handkerchiefs with prints of certain scenes from the movie. And I have a couple of these for Zootopia as well. So I have a couple of Zootopia scene handkerchiefs as well. I don't use them. I just keep them as collector's items. But I'm always on the fence because the resolution is usually not the best on these handkerchiefs. It kind of confuses me because usually the merch in Japan for anything is top notch, like the design, the quality, everything. But for the handkerchiefs, I guess also just the nature of the cloth being fuzzy, I feel like the resolution is never that great. Like it looks almost counterfeit, doesn't it? It looks like somebody printed this out in their basement. But nevertheless, I thought that this scene was kind of cute. So this never actually happens in the movie, at least not in my recollection. Maybe in a deleted scene somewhere, but not in the movie that I saw. I never saw a scene where they were surrounded by a bunch of plastic yellow rubber duckies, but it is on one of their promotional posters, and it is a really cute visual. So I thought I would just go ahead and grab it. I mean, I can always give it away or sell it later if I'm not feeling it. Yeah, this was 800 yen. Not that bad for a handkerchief. Or I could use it. Actually, that's probably the best solution. I should probably use all the things that I buy. But I have been using okay, so I've been kind of alarmed at the amount of movie merch that I've been purchasing ever since I got really, really into watching movies in theaters, starting from last year or 2 years ago. But you can't say that I don't use the merch that I get. Like this Wonka pass case, train pass case, for example, I use this. And the Wonka makeup pouch, this has now become my regular everyday makeup pouch that I bring with me in my purse. So I be using the merch. You can't even say that I don't use it. I'm gonna open the notebook as well. It was just such a cute movie, you guys. Super, super adorable. Great for all audiences. It's truly like the epitome of a feel-good family film. You know, it has the emotions, it has the adventures, it has the age appropriateness. Like they didn't overdo it with anything in this movie. Not even the jokes. You know, sometimes with kids movies, there's a little bit too much slapstick humor, or some of the jokes just really don't land for adults. But this movie, I felt like there was a really, really good, even keeled humor throughout that I found myself actually laughing and giggling and kicking my feet at some instances, at some points. I was able to do because the theater was half empty, so there was no one around me. So I was able to like move around a little bit. But yeah, there was no overly self-conscious jokes. There was nothing overly vulgar or dirty. It was just genuinely funny, like genuinely witty, which is hard to accomplish, I think. Like it's very, very hard to strike a balance between jokes that work well for both children and adult audiences for all ages. It's harder than it sounds. But yeah, spread your wings. I like this message. I feel like this is a good phrase to be looking at, every day in the morning when I'm journaling. I love that new notebook smell. Okay. So yeah, that's all I have to say about the duck movie, Migration. And I think that they will have a Migration 2. Not sure when it's going to come out, but it has been confirmed that a sequel is going to happen because the final scene was definitely setting it up for a sequel. So the family is basically, I don't know if they're still in Jamaica. I guess they just stayed there for a while and then they're about to go back to their original pond that they call home when they get intercepted by a group of penguins that have lost their way. So then Mac, being the nice, helpful, adventurous leader duck that he is, offers to help the penguins find their way home to the North Pole. Is it North Pole or South Pole that the penguins live at? I think it's South Pole. So he agrees to help them find their way to their home in the South Pole, and then the movie ends there, leading us to believe that there's going to be a sequel of the family trying to get this group of penguins to the South Pole and probably running into a myriad of other mishaps along the way. 10 out of 10. Not 10 out of 10. Maybe 8.5 out of 10 I would give this movie. Truly. I think it deserves more hype than it's gotten. Like, I think it's kind of sad that the opening week numbers were so low. And I also was not aware that it came out in Japan like 8 months after the release date in North America. I mean, that's just how it goes with these international films or Western films. Sometimes they're screening in Japan in tandem with the rest of the world. Sometimes they come out literally 8 months later or 1 year later here in Japan. I don't even know how that works, but yeah, nothing we can do about that. Oppenheimer is coming out finally, because I know that that was a big controversy that they weren't sure if they were even going to screen it in Japan because of all the backlash that it got. But I think eventually they decided that it's going to happen. So March 29th, that is tomorrow. It's March 28th right now. I don't know if I want to see that. If it's violent, I would opt out. But if it's more just on the historical side of things, like I can take historical dramas if they focus more on technical things, you know. I'm thinking since this is about the atomic bomb, maybe it will have more of a focus onto the technical scientific side of things. If that's the case, then I might be inclined to go see it in theaters. But if it shows a lot of violence, I would pass because I just don't do well with that. But anyway, that is all I have for you lovelies today, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.